What you're looking at isn't just a house, it's a promise kept. 8,000 square feet of precision engineered structural insulated panels assembled in just 13 days, weather delays and all. But this story runs deeper than speed or architecture. This is a build born from vision and loss, designed by a couple who dreamed it together, then carried forward by one in honor of the other. Today on the Build Show, we team up with Extreme Panel Technologies to peel back the layers of this massive SIPS-built Barndominium and show you what happens when performance building meets personal legacy. Today's Build Show is sponsored by Extreme Panel Technologies. Let's get going. All right, my friends, inside the build today, we're going to dig in to an 8,000 square feet house that literally got built for around $40 per square foot for the structure. This is a rural build in, frankly, the middle of nowhere. And I think a lot of you guys watching may have a client or may yourselves want to build a legacy house on some property, on some acreage. And I got to tell you, this is a really compelling story. Let me introduce you to the two builders. We got Chris and Brent here, and you guys have met Perry with Extreme Panel before. Perry, I want to start with you on this story. You know, this is a customer that came to you with a precedent image, that's this right here, and basically a napkin sketch, and maybe even a little bit of a site plan. Talk to me about how this started.
You know, it's really common how that's kind of the story with a lot of our stuff, where we get literally a napkin or an idea,
right,
and then we go through and we come up with ways to do exactly what they want to do. And it evolved through the process of dealing with Brenda on this house about what she wanted and what was important to her. And that was really the key to how this ended up, was just making it for her.
And so Brenda and her husband bought this property. This is rural Oklahoma. I heard that the husband actually mowed the lot, and mowed the field exactly where the footprint of the house was going to be, but unfortunately passed away before the project started. Is that right?
Yeah, I mean, what a story they have. And, it's just when we get into our customers' lives, it changes us also, because we become part of their lives. And it's so cool to be able to do that for people. And this is a really good example of what our team at Extreme Panel can help with and assist people.
That's pretty cool.
And, it's a dream that they had, and they had no idea really how to do it.
That's awesome.
And we made it happen.
So let me go back to this precedent image, kind of a gambrel style roof. She wanted to do a barn on the first floor to house a bunch of cool things from they gathered through their lifetime. They're retired at this point. So this was kind of the precedent image. And you look at this and go, oh yeah, that makes perfect sense to do that 8,000 square foot building as a SIPS project.
Right.
Talk to me about the location. I think one thing that's fascinating about Extreme Panels, you guys build all over the country, from Alaska to Florida.
Yeah.
And it's no big deal for you guys to ship panels pretty much anywhere.
Every day people will call, are you guys going to ship to Ohio or Tennessee or Florida? And we're like, we can ship anywhere. It doesn't matter. It's just a truck. And, by getting the package that we're going to give you that's ready to assemble, so well thought out and precision pieces, it makes a world of difference on the time of a build like this.
Yeah.
When you're talking a build like this, and when we have builders that can come and put this thing together in 13 days, that just doesn't happen in the construction world.
That's fabulous.
And I think for the builder, the actual general contractor of this job, once he saw the whole system and understood that, wow, this is a kit, and then this crew comes and they put it together, he was blown away, because he was looking at it saying, how am I going to build this conventionally? Yeah. And we came up with a solution for him.
That's awesome.
And Josh did a really nice job with this client and with
Josh
on our team, and really brought this to light for everyone, and then brought everyone together, connected all the dots, and really made it a huge success for everyone involved. And that's what we try to do with every project.
So let me back up just a hair to say we have a local builder, Eric, who's not in the studio with us today. Eric got the slab ready, put all the plumbing in, put all the underground electric and the septic and the whole shebang. And then both Brent and Chris, the co-owners of Vance Construction, they've been building with you guys for a long time. And your team said, hey, local contractor, you're afraid of this, you're a little concerned about building this, your framers aren't used to it, I'll get you connected with Brent and Chris. Their team can come out and assemble this and give you a fixed price bid even on assembling that.
Right.
And they have no problem going from their home base in Minnesota, right,
Yep,
Brent?
Swanville, Minnesota.
And you guys have traveled all over the U.S. to do these builds.
Yeah, we travel everywhere. Anywhere a SIP job is needed to be put up, we'll go and put it up.
That's fabulous. So when you guys showed up, I'm kind of showing an image here. This is the slab. It's about a 6,000 square foot slab. And when you guys show up, there's how many of these trucks from Extreme Panel waiting for you?
I believe there are 6 truckloads of material that came to the job site, and it was spaced out throughout the job or through the beginning stages of the job.
Okay, so all 6 weren't there on day one.
Correct.
You guys are smart enough to space out, hey, you're going to
Yeah.
need this truck or
Yep.
these 2 trucks on day 1, set another 2 or 3 trucks
We
on day
sequence
2.
to make sure that they have what they need to get going and that they can keep rolling. And
Yeah.
then, sometimes it's advantageous to have it all there, and sometimes they want one truck, and then a week later another truck. It just depends on what the job is and the logistics of it.
And I'm seeing a SkyTrack on the job. I'm assuming that's a local rental. You guys usually just have a local rental
Yeah.
company drop off SkyTrack. And Brent, most of the time you're offloading and even using that SkyTrack as your quote unquote crane on the job site, right?
Yeah, correct. Most projects we can do with a 42-foot telehandler.
However, on this project, you guys actually brought out another piece of equipment that I haven't seen a whole lot. And that's that piece of equipment we're seeing in the background behind this ridge beam. Talk to me about that crane of yours.
Yeah, so that crane is a self-erecting tower crane. It folds down. There's a hitch mount on it. We have a trucking company we hired to haul that around the country fairly inexpensively, and it just makes the job a lot smoother. Rather than the customer or the contractor needing to rent a crane on site, our cost to get that there is much cheaper than
renting a local crane. Now, if this is a smaller project, a 10-foot ceilings, 2-story house, you might not have needed that, correct?
Yeah, correct. This comes on big projects typically, or challenging projects that are hard to get to.
What was the ridge height on this big boy?
The ridge height on this, I believe, is 38 feet to the peak.
Not a small project.
No.
Not a small project. And Perry, I think we teased these guys saying this is like $40 ish for the full structural package. Is that right?
Yeah. So when we look at the volume of space that's in this 6,000 square foot footprint, but yet there's another 2,000 of living space. When we look at that, the SIP cost and the actual beam cost for that, we're right around that $40 a square foot.
That's amazing.
And I mean, the volume, of course, makes that different, right?
Right.
So smaller buildings, it's going to be a little bit more per square foot, but when we add up this volume and then take it by that square footage, it's really a reasonable dollar figure.
Yeah, it's not bad at all. Chris, I want to jump into a couple of the construction details. I know my audience is just as nerdy as me. When we're setting these first floor panels, talk to me about that process. We still need to put a traditional bolted down bottom plate in first, right?
Correct. Yeah, you put the bottom plate down and anchor bolts. I guess we put the SIP seal underneath the plate for the air seal.
And then each one of these first floor panels, just the telehandler, they're not that heavy. It's pretty straightforward.
Yeah.
And you're basically craning that panel down onto that bottom plate, right?
Yeah, it sits right over the top of the bottom plate. A lot of times we can, if they're manageable panels, we can even lift those by hand. You don't have to lift them with a telehandler or a skyjack. I think in that picture right there, we're using it to put pressure on it to put it to level.
Okay, that makes sense. And Perry, what's the wall thickness in R value? What are we looking at
I
here?
think these were 8-inch walls, I believe,
Okay.
and 12-inch roof, correct, guys?
So it's actually a 7 1/4
Yes.
foam, and then by the time that goes over top of a 2x8 bottom plate in this case, now your total wall thickness is what, 8 1/4, something
8
like that?
1/4 total thickness.
Yeah.
Yep. Our foam is 7 3/8, and then we add the skins on both sides.
And what's the R value of that?
That's an R33
Holy
wall.
cow. And that's, for the most part, a continuous R33 with a little bit of structure in these walls that might be a slightly lower R value, right?
Yeah, you're going to see when we have 38 feet in these areas,
Look at that
there
panel.
is some glue lam columns within that wall, more than likely a hold down in certain locations holding it down. But yeah, you're talking major height.
Yeah, that's serious business.
Yeah, but the beauty is with the panels being straight and true and huge, here they put panels together and created a great big piece.
Boy, Chris, that shows the power of your crane, doesn't it?
Yeah. Actually, we added the glue lambs to those panels. So
Is that
we have
right?
to lift them up separately.
Okay. So the glue lam columns that were in the structure got put into that middle of the assembly. So there is a couple of sections here that has a solid wood column.
Yes.
Yeah, which makes sense. And if you were in a really cold climate, not Oklahoma, but like up in Minnesota, you could also add extra insulation on that as well if you wanted to.
If you needed to.
Put a 6-inch column and an 8-inch wall, let's say, or something like that.
You know, our amount of thermal breakage in that wall is so small just because everything else is insulation. So you're really talking a very small amount of thermal bridging.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. Chris, talk to me about this big structural connection. This is a Simpson hold down, and I'm guessing that's probably a drilled connection between that hold down and the concrete.
Yeah, we drill those in, and according to specs, it varies on depth, but then we epoxy that in there.
So that's all thread that the engineer says, hey, I want this to go down 18 inches or whatever it is into the concrete structure. You drill it, blow it out, clean it, put the epoxy in, drop the all thread in, and now you can basically put that hold down wherever you want. You don't rely on the concrete guy to put that in the right spot.
Exactly.
That makes sense. And then what's interesting though is you're actually about to bury that inside a SIPS panel, right?
Yes.
How does that work?
In that situation, we would carve out a little bit of foam to fit over that, and then we drill a hole in. A couple of holes in it, we inject it with spray foam to fill that blade.
Oh, very cool. So in other words, you use a little hot knife and take that section out?
Yeah, a little bit of hot knife or a Sawzall.
And what's interesting is it looks to me like you've got some nice full depth insulation on the exterior of that. So that's not going to see a bunch of condensation on it by getting cold.
Right. Yeah.
Plus that foam is going to fill that void up, right, Perry?
Right.
Now, Perry, I've seen in a lot of jobs though, strap hold downs. Tell me about the difference between a strap hold down and that.
So a strap hold down would be a cast in place where they're actually putting it into the concrete and the strap comes up on the outside of the wall.
Yep.
So it really is a lot simpler. So before the concrete gets poured, we will ask our engineer, hey, can we use a strap or do we have to have an embedded hold down in? And then that's when we will determine before concrete's done what hold downs are going in.
Gotcha.
Because we'd much rather do a cast in place strap hold down that's exterior based and actually molded into the concrete. That's not coming out. But there are certain times with the loads that we're seeing that we've got to have an embedded rod in. Even the epoxy sometimes isn't enough where they actually have to be poured into the concrete.
Right? Yeah.
So it just depends on the situation.
Gotcha.
The sooner the better.
This is someone on your crew, right?
Yep.
Some handsome young guy about to drill. That may or may not be a relative, I'm guessing. Okay, so then now at this point, we got some big gable walls going in. I mean, look at that. That's 38 feet to that ridge. Is that right?
Yes. It doesn't look that big in that picture, but it's huge.
It's big.
Yes.
It's definitely big. And talk to me about some of these connections. Like I'm seeing big beams. This is not timber frame, but it kind of is a version of it.
You know, the contractor and the homeowner they knew that they wanted a structure member that they were just going to kind of make themselves. They were going to do LVLs and put them together. And then Josh and our team talked them into, hey, let's do a beam system. So we ended up supplying through Extreme the beams and these steel brackets and had all that designed, engineered by our engineer. And it just made for a really fast time of construction.
So these
they would have been on site days longer without this being designed the way we had it done.
And so these big timbers are actually a glue lam product.
It's a glue lam.
Multiple layers glued up. Yes. And you guys supplied these brackets as well.
Correct.
It looks like we've got a side beam coming in here and a saddle for maybe a ridge beam. Is that what I'm saying?
All of that. So that would be the top of a post. And it would go up with two beams connecting to it. And it's just an awesome looking structure. And seeing the black, it always looks nice. I mean, it's a post and beam type of feel,
I really like
without the timber frame price to it.
Yeah, and look how pretty those
Yeah.
posts are too when they're
Right.
all done. It looks to me like you could stain those and
Yeah, and
call
I
it
think
good.
the thought was they were going to cover them all up, but now that they've seen them all,
They
they're
like
going to
'em.
really they'll expose them and
They'll express them, as
Yeah.
the architects like to say.
Correct. right.
Yeah, that looks awesome. All right, so let's fast forward a little bit in the construction process. Chris, I like this reverse drone shot you got. This is your phone on the ground flying in a panel. What size roof panel are you looking at there?
That one there is an 8 by, geez, it's pretty close to 20 feet, maybe a little bit longer, maybe 22 feet long.
And you guys call that a jumbo panel, Perry?
It's a jumbo we make up to 8x24s, but this is actually cut specifically on the top and specifically on the bottom to fit on that upper roof section. So those ends are pre-cut according to the pitches that were needed.
And so it's bearing on the ridge,
Yep.
and then it's bearing on this other beam on the
Correct.
right. We're seeing where that
Yes.
scissor lift is.
Right.
And in the center, there's no structure, right? That's just foam and OSB.
So it just depends on the load.
might have.
In this case, I think we had I-joist put in this upper roof because it's almost 24 feet.
Oh, okay.
So I believe we had an I-joist, and I think they put two panels together on the ground. Am I right, Chris?
Yeah, I can't remember on this exact part here, but yeah, there
Yeah.
is.
So, but moral of the story is, yes, it can be a jumbo panel, or if we need more structure in it, we'll add an I-joist in every 4 foot.
Got it. So in
to
this
make
image,
that
you
span.
might have had an I-joist here on this span from the ridge to that mid span where that gambrel pitch break happens.
Yes,
Right?
and yeah.
Yeah, that's cool.
Mhm.
Now, if I keep going, I'm noticing that on the edges of the roof, on that gambrel roof where that pitch break happens, I'm seeing these tails coming out.
Yep.
Are those coming from the factory, Perry?
So-
or did those get installed on
So
site?
those, Brent and Chris installed those on site, but we made the pocket into the foam. So you insert that up into the panel 2 feet. So it gives us the access to be able to put that in. And it's just easier to do it all on the ground when they're on the ground before you're lifting them in
Gotcha.
to create that overhang.
And man,
And on this, the gable ends, it was a full panel overhang,
mhm.
but then the eave, they created it with that tail pocket system.
Gotcha. And this gable end, Brent, I can see that you got some structural columns in there, which is probably taking that load of the ridge and taking that load path down. And did you have to cut the pitch on that ridge?
No, all the panels come pre-cut. There was really no cutting on this. Everything comes from Extreme.
That's fabulous. Even the ridge beam was pre-cut with the angle it needed?
Yep, everything comes.
That's
exactly
awesome.
how I just install it.
And what's this flap that I'm seeing here?
That's SIP tape up at the very top. So over the ridge beam, we drape a tape because that's a critical spot.
Mhm.
You've got all this, you got heat,
Pressure.
pressure, humidity trying to get through.
Yep.
And it's going to find the least spot of resistance to get through.
That's right.
So we take that and we eliminate that. We're going to put a vapor tape up to the bottom of the panel. It will seal that joint so nothing could get through.
Yeah, and you're doing a belt and suspender approach, which I really
Correct.
like. You've got a SIP seal, which is in
Yes.
this Milwaukee caulking gun that one of your guys is using. So
Yep.
he's probably putting that down before that roof panel comes on. And that also is going to happen at the ridge as well. So we've got
Correct.
both SIP seal and some tape in that location.
SIP seal is the key to our air sealing, and that's how we're getting tests. You know, look at this building with garage doors and windows, but you know, we would like to see a test at 0.2 or under
Yeah.
on this thing. I mean, you know,
0.2 ACH 50 or under.
we'd love that. You know,
How about that, guys?
we strive for a 0.5 and under, but in this style of a building and how huge it is,
Yeah.
you know, it's the bigger the building, the easier it is to get to those low numbers. And
Let's talk about
you know,
that
we've
for a
got guys
second.
that are doing that as a standard. That's kind of, they're striving to get 0.18, 0.116. And I mean, it's crazy.
That's fabulous.
That's a normal part of our building. Is the energy efficiency is just inherent to what gets done in 13 days. The way they're sealing it and the way that they're putting the SIP seal in and all the vapor tape, it's creating the tightest structure that can be built.
So 2 things I want to mention on that, which I think relate back to size. Number one, the bigger the house, the bigger the project, this being 8,000 square feet, to get to that $40 a square foot structure number, you're actually helped quite a bit by size.
Right.
You know, the analogy I like to use when I'm talking to custom clients is, you know, if you build a 2,000 square foot house with a normal size kitchen, now all of a sudden you build a 4,000 square foot house, but it has maybe just a slightly bigger kitchen. That house is way less per square foot to build because my living room space is twice as big. And think about the space that cabinets or your Sub-Zero or fridge occupy. That's crazy expensive per square foot in the kitchen. So if you have a big volume like this, that's how you can get to that low dollar per square foot. My guess, Perry, is that if we're building a normal sized house, quote unquote, 3,000-4,000 square foot house, you're going to spend another 30, 40%, 50% more on panel costs and and structure, right?
Yeah, I mean, just the sheer volume of this area creates that lower cost in this case. And it's amazing. It's actually really cool that it comes in at that dollar rate.
That's amazing. The other thing I really like, that speaking of that kind of bigger and high performance, this house being built, frankly, no offense to the homeowner, but in the middle of nowhere, right? This is not in the middle of Austin, Texas, where there's 24 of my competitors that could build a fabulous house. I'm sure I've not met Eric. I'm sure he's a fabulous builder, but he's not building passive houses all day long. And he's not typically, I would guess, blower dooring every house and putting super thick insulation. And yet this homeowner building in the middle of acreage in rural America is going to get a super airtight, super well insulated, super well built shell that these guys, Brent and Chris, can assemble in 3 weeks, let's say, on site.
Sure.
That's pretty amazing.
It is.
That's a story to tell right there.
It's a story to tell. I mean, literally, you get windows and doors in this thing in another week. You're completely weather tight.
That's crazy.
It's just awesome.
That's awesome. So I think, if I remember correctly, Eric is actually going to install the windows and doors on this project. So when you guys left, Brent, fully shelled structure, ready for Eric to take over and weatherize the building, put windows and doors in, and then move on for exterior cladding.
Yeah, we came back 2 weeks later and he had the full apartment side or house side of this framed up. The outside had a weather barrier on it. It was ready to go for what their roofing material. I think they're putting steel on this. But yeah, it was ready for them to start going. I think now he's got all the windows and doors in. I think they're putting the siding on.
That's pretty amazing. Chris, what was the breakdown on this 8,000 square feet between shop, barn, and living space?
I think the living space was 2,000 square feet.
Yeah, the total
On each
structure
level.
is 60 by 100, and the living square feet is 34 by 60.
Okay, so as we look at this basement footprint, what's the slab?
60 by 100.
60 by 100. Okay, so 6,000 square feet on the ground level, and then you ended up framing basically a loft living space as well, which was another 2,000 square feet. Fabulous. I do have a random question for you, Perry. I don't see any skylights in the center of this building. Let's say the homeowner 10 years from now wants to come back and add a standard Velux package and add 2 or 3 skylights in the center. What do they need to do about that?
It's a pretty standard question. We'll get people that say, hey, I've lived in this space. I want to add skylights. We've just got to know what they're doing, where they're putting it, and we'll have to get our engineer involved and just make sure that sometimes it can get cut right into the panel. Sometimes we have to put some more structure in. It just depends.
But you guys did all the engineering.
We do all, so we have all that information. Yeah. We've got jobs that are 25 years old that we go back to. We can look at what was designed back then. We have all the panel drawings. It's kind of amazing having all that history. And just like solar panels, now people want to put on solar panels. So, hey, what's the attachment? And can we put it on the south side of this roof? And typically it's not a problem.
Yeah, those are pretty straightforward.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
What a fabulous story, guys. What have I missed in telling this tale? Is there anything that we didn't cover that you want to talk about, Perry or Chris or Brent?
I think what Extreme, our normal client base is this type of a customer who they own land, they're building a legacy building, or they're building their final home. It's common that we see what happened here with the napkin sketch, having Extreme help value design our system is going to save the customer money.
Oh yeah.
So get us involved as early as you can in the process so that we can assist the design and help with the design any way that we can, because panel lengths make a world of difference on what this thing's going to cost.
Right, for sure.
And so we don't want waste, and the customer doesn't want to pay for it. So the more we can maximize the system, just makes it more cost effective for everyone.
And in the projects that I've done over the years where I've got a pre-manufactured component, I've always found having that architect interface, if I am going to use an architect, interface with the manufacturer means that we get a more simplified design, right? We realize, oh, actually, it's actually a little more difficult or a little more costly if we had these 3 gables and turn gables and all these other things that you want. But when you build a really straightforward building like this, the cost per square foot really comes down. It allows Brent and Chris to frame this thing in 13 days and get out of there. It just brings everybody's cost, timeline, performance way up. It just makes for a really smooth project.
And as far as the installation of the SIP panels, we specialize in the SIP side of it. So if people have any apprehensions towards doing it, we're game to come and install the panel and get the project at least to this point where they take over from there.
Yeah, that's huge. And then the framer can do some interior framing or whatever that they're used to doing. And they're used to doing weather barrier and siding and roofing. Nothing's changed when we're doing a SIPS project. Fabulous. Guys, really appreciate your time coming out to Austin and spend some time with the studio. I'm going to put a link to Extreme Panel, who sponsored today's video, in the description so you can get a hold of these guys. But Perry and the rest of his team, fabulous people to work with. You definitely want to get them involved earlier in your project, whether you're a builder, an architect, or potentially a homeowner watching this. Get a hold of these guys early, just like this homeowner did, so you can bring your ideas and they can collaborate with you from the start. That's really important to get a building like this built. Guys, I'm really proud of how this turned out. I think this is the style that we need to see American buildings moving towards, that are efficient and healthy and durable and long lasting. I mean, this homeowner is going to enjoy this for the rest of their life, but my guess is that the family is going to own this for many generations to come. I mean, this is an incredible building. And to build it in that speed and that efficiency and at that price point, it's really impressive. Thanks for joining us as we talked about this case study in an incredibly well-built rural house. If you are not a subscriber, hit that subscribe button below, guys. We've got new content here every Tuesday and every Friday. Follow us on Facebook or Instagram. Otherwise, guys, you got to finish out my video. We'll see you next time on The Build Show.